What's up, everybody? So back at it again with the narration videos because I know they're your favorite, but gotta do what you gotta do, and it makes class time a little bit faster and easier. So here we go. Parts of the brain. So basically everything we're going to be talking about here, so we see here's the cerebrum, all the brain lobes, so we've already talked about, cerebral cortex, the hemispheres, the four major lobes. We've already gone over that, so we're all set. The limbic system. So we see here in our little graphic parts of the limbic system. Behavioral and emotional responses. So you see the thalamus, hypothalamus, hippocampus, amygdala, cingulate cortex are the ones that are most commonly associated with it. So that's what we're going to talk about. And then other than emotions, stress, fear, anxiety, motivation, memory, smell. There's a lot of things intertwined with the limbic system. And frankly, as we kind of go along with the rest of the brain, you'll see that's really just the brain in general. Everything is intertwined with itself.
Welcome to 2 Minute Neuro.
We're going to skip that. All right. The amygdala. So there's a lot of things with the amygdala: emotion, behavior, connected with the thalamus for unconscious fear, anxiety. But really, more than anything, if you just remember amygdala and fear, you're all set. Right, your reaction to fear, there's an unconscious fear with your thalamus. Memories of fearful incidents tend to light up the amygdala, and that's where you see then like the role in anxiety, because anxiety, there is an aspect of fear within anxiety, especially like the fear of not being in control, something along those lines. But amygdala fear, that's the big one to know. Thalamus. Basically, all of our senses, with the exception of smell, travel through the thalamus. So this is, you see there, right, the relay station, the major traffic hub. And then I'm not going to read all the lists of some of the functions, but basically all of our major senses kind of go to the thalamus. And then, I was going to say, no one here has probably watched the Michael Jordan documentary, but, here. It basically tells then where to go next. So, perception, motor information, sensory information, blah, blah, blah. Sensory information goes through thalamus and then it gets directed elsewhere. The hypothalamus, so hypo means below, so the easiest way to remember it, your thalamus is here, and then if you ever need to find your hypothalamus, just look right underneath it because hypo means below. The hypothalamus, talking about what we've been doing the past few days with the endocrine system and then the pituitary gland, which we'll get to next. This controls the autonomic nervous system and then essentially the endocrine system. So that's the hypothalamus tells the pituitary gland what to do, and then to look ahead, the pituitary gland, right, as the master gland tells everything else what to do. This is in charge of that. So you'll see there all of the different things that the hypothalamus has a role in or helps to regulate or helps to tell the pituitary gland what to do. Oh, sorry, skip those. The hippocampus. Hippocampus, what you need to know, hippocampus, memory. There's types of memory that we'll get into a little bit later, but hippocampus and memory, those are the ones to know. Cingulate cortex. So the cingulate cortex, as you see right in the picture here, the corpus callosum, and then the green part would be the cingulate cortex. So it sits right above the corpus callosum, and this is involved with a lot of different processes throughout the brain. So you see there voicing emotions, which would then be like speech for Broca's area, the amygdala, decision-making, spatial memory. So it has a lot of different roles, and even just looking at the brain like physically, if you look at where the cingulate cortex is located, it makes sense that it has a lot of roles within these different areas. So, in the frontal lobe, and then it gets into the temporal lobe and the parietal. So it has a lot of different areas and a lot of different processes that it's involved in because of where it's located. The hindbrain. So lower section of the brain, kind of the back of the head here. This is really going to be your autonomic tasks. Basically, things that happen that our body does that you don't need to ever actively think about in order to work. So your respiratory rhythm, your heart rate, your sleep, your wakefulness, your motor activity, those things of that, in a way you can control, right? You can think about if your heart's beating really, really fast, you can take it over in the sense of, all right, if I slow my breathing, right, you can start to do breathing techniques that help lower and kind of relax your heart rate. But you never have to actively think, I need to breathe, or actively think, my heart needs to beat in order for those things to happen. Right? They're happening automatically. So this would be your cerebellum, your pons, medulla, reticular formation are all going to be in there as well. So your cerebellum is your little brain. Boop. Right. Bottom of the brain. Physical movement, coordination. So I think I've talked about it a lot, but like if you are an athlete in any way, cerebellum is a big friend to you. Also helps, with other aspects of motor skills. Speech or vision. So speech, obviously production, right, moving your muscles. This is also going to get into Broca's and things like that. But vision, right, you have to be able to move your eyes. Well, that's all cerebellum as well. The pons. So you see here, I don't know if I can move my little. Oh, perfect. I'm moving. Pons here, right, is sitting on the brainstem there. Pons is Latin for bridge, and this is connecting the brainstem, right, to the midbrain, the cerebellum, kind of connects all of these things all the way up. And you can see there, right, it deals with a whole lot of tasks, plays a very big role in sending and relaying information to, again, where it needs to go. The medulla, now I've got to travel again. Woo! So medulla, you see here, sits beneath the pons. And again, kind of like the pons in the way, it deals a lot with unconscious commands and then relaying information, again, to where it needs to go, either up to the pons and then throughout the brain, kind of stuff from there. But autonomically, so vomiting, coughing, sneezing, swallowing, plus your cardiovascular respiratory systems. It has a role in all of those things, again, at that unconscious level. Reticular formation. So reticular means net-like, so it looks like a net. Circadian rhythm. So your circadian rhythm is your sleep-wake cycle. So this is your 24-hour, right? You get tired at this point of the day, you're awake during this point of the day, and like your body gets used to that cycle. It's the same reason why if you get up at, if your alarm is at 6 a.m. every day, and then on a weekend you still wake up without your alarm around that time, it's because your body is used to that cycle. That reticular formation helps to regulate that. In your RAS, or the reticular activating system, is arousal. So your reticular formation, circadian rhythm, but then also arousal, so acetylcholine and norepinephrine, movement, and things like that. Your pituitary gland. So I kind of stuck this in here. This was what I was talking about before with the thalamus, hypothalamus, and then your pituitary gland. So your pituitary gland here, see there, right, that little master gland, size of a pea, sits right underneath your hypothalamus. And that is what helps control and work with your endocrine system. So if I move myself again, boom, you see, all of these different hormones that your pituitary gland works with. So it takes orders from the hypothalamus, but they really kind of work together to then dictate what the other glands and other things within your endocrine system have to do and like what to produce. And then you'll see there, you don't need to write those down, but those are the different hormones that are involved within the pituitary gland or that it kind of orders around. Your corpus callosum, as we know and we've already talked about, right there, connects the two hemispheres of the brain. Like the video we watched, the two hemispheres, you can kind of like really pull apart. They're very separate. The corpus callosum is what connects them, allows them to talk to one another. That's what allows, right, your right side is your left brain, your right brain is your left side. Allows all of that talking to go back and forth with one another. Someone that has, epilepsy, very bad bouts of seizure, that's where a lot of that occurs because there's so many nerves that are intertwined and going back and forth. So that's where the severing of the corpus callosum happens and they actually cut it. And that's where the video talks about your brain still is fine, like you still function normal in your day-to-day life, but your brain can't talk to itself in the same way when you sever the corpus callosum. Next is Broca's area. We see in the front, and then you'll see Wernicke's after this. So Broca's area has to do with your speech production. And what that means is, so like your planning of speech. So like right now I'm talking, but whenever you're talking, there's also a part of your brain that is actively thinking about like what are you going to say next. That's your Broca's area. So it's the planning of speech and your speech patterns. It helps with the motor movements within your mouth. So we're talking about like the cerebellum. Broca's area also has to do with forming the correct muscle movements, your breathing patterns during speech. What's interesting about Broca's area is during the actual speaking, so like as I'm speaking right now, my Broca's area is not telling me what to say. It's like it turns off and then it helps plan on what's going to say next. Broca's aphasia. So aphasia is when something goes wrong, essentially. So you can still understand language, like you can still comprehend what's going on, but your ability to accurately articulate, so your ability to speak, essentially, is not lost, but you have very broken speech after that. So you see, like in the little diagram here, Broca's aphasia, absent grammar, difficulty forming complete sentences, omitting certain words, more difficulty using verbs, so on and so forth. So your ability to comprehend and understand language is still fully intact. And it's not that you can't produce any speech, it's that you have serious trouble producing language in a comprehensible manner. The next video we won't watch here. You can watch kind of on your own on the PowerPoint. But this man here has Broca's aphasia, so you get a good idea of what it actually looks and sounds like. And then lastly, Wernicke's area. So again, on the left temporal lobe, but just further back. So this has nothing to do with production, but it has to do with the comprehension of speech. So understanding and processing. So being able to understand and create and form like meaningful sentences, and not speak them, but understand them and form them in your head. So for Wernicke's aphasia, your speech production is normal. So like I'm talking right now, but what I'm saying in a coherent, Broca's like coherent is difficult in producing like a coherent sentence that like is coming out with a full sentence, grammar, all those things. Wernicke's area, the coherent issue is that the words don't actually make sense with one another. So like you string words together that make sentences that don't make sense. And we'll see a video in the next slide. It'd be like me speaking like this, but I'm saying like in dinosaur, chicken nuggets, map, desks, da 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 da. And like as you're talking, it sounds like a normal sentence with the cadence and the rhythm and everything like that. But the words themselves don't actually make any sense put together. And then someone's with aphasia, they don't really understand they're making those mistakes. Everything like sounds normal, but if you actually paid attention to the words, it's like gobbledygook. That was my way to sneak gobbledygook into a presentation, by the way. And then in this video here, same thing. You'll see that this man has Wernicke's aphasia and how he's able to speak in like a normal rhythm, normal cadence, but the actual words that he's using don't really make sense. Perfect. All right. And that is it. Awesome. Thanks, everybody.